All right, so we're officially in the third week of the course of 15, so that you're 20% done now. The first week we talked about what is economics, microeconomics, that kind of stuff, the introduction and syllabus. Second week, you had your first taste of what real microeconomics looks like. In particular, we went over what models are and the facets of models, and the kind of introduce you to game theory models themselves, even though, like I said, the solution concept isn't super important. Okay, so this lecture we're going to start talking about trade. And by trade, you might think I'm speaking about, U.S.-China trade or Franco-German trade, something international in nature. And that's definitely part of it. It's a good body of research. And I'm pretty familiar with it if you would like to talk about international trade. But what we're talking about here in the lecture is more general than that. So trade definitely can be country-to-country trade, but it could also be person-to-person trade. I go downstairs, I get a hoagie, and I trade my cash for the hoagie. Okay, that's still trade. I'm trading some symbol of my labor, the dollars that I earn from laboring, in exchange for a facet of food, which is their labor, something that they've worked on. So that is, the broad sense of trade, exchanging one thing for another. And that's more or less what we're going to talk about in this lecture, and why it might have some benefits, where it might not, and how we kind of think about trade in more of an analytical sense. Okay, and part of that, one of the building blocks, is what we call production possibilities. So production possibilities is basically if you have a certain set of goods that you can produce, your production, and a certain budget constraints such as your time or skill or your money, how do you get the most efficient production pattern out of that? And that depends on what your peers can do and that kind of thing. So let's say I have the ability to produce something towards my job. So I'm producing a lecture right now, right? I could have spent this time producing a sandwich, right, and not have had the middleman, right? So if I'm producing the job, I get paid for the job, I use the money to pay for a sandwich, right? Is that more effective a means of production than if I just went and got a sandwich myself, made a sandwich myself? That would be something along the lines of how we're thinking about trade. What's the most efficient way to produce? In this case, we're going to look at two goods, so lecture or sandwich. What's the most efficient way to produce them given the current market environments? How should I allot my time, which in this case would be my budget? How should I allot my budget to produce two goods? That's your production possibility frontier in a nutshell. And then based on that, we use that to define the patterns of trade. Okay, so as I step into lecture, it'll be more clear what I'm talking about. But the broad sense is you have a certain number of goods that you can produce, a certain budget of what you, how you can allot your budget to produce those goods, and other people in your market or economy. And then you say, how do you most benefit? How do you most efficiently produce in order to benefit yourself or to benefit the economy or whatever the analytical variable you're looking at is? Okay.